Hello and welcome to my ammunition guide for tanks part 1. Before we really start off, I need to let you know that I make 2 videos out of that topic because there is just simply too much stuff I have to talk about to just simply put it in one video. In fact, to give you a good overlook over the entire topic, I need to talk about 4 interacting points. The first point is the hit and kill cam within Warthunder, and I think it is a fantastic tool to learn and to understand the game mechanics. The second and third point are kinetic energy based ammunition and chemical energy based ammunition, where I will explain the main characteristica of them and also the difference between them. The last part will be the choice of ammunition, and therefore I will give you some of the most important examples with an explanation when to use which ammunition for the best. In the first video I will cover part 1 and 2, and in the second video I will cover part 3 and 4. This video is aimed at not just beginners, but also tankers that just play one specific nation and want to know a bit about other nations' ammunition. Also, I want to get rid of a common misbelief that the ammunition which does have the best penetration values, or is the most expensive one, or is the last one you get access to, is automatically by default the best ammo you can use, and you shouldn't use anything else but this shell type. In most cases that is not true, and a tank commander that just carrying a single shell type shows that he doesn't fully understand how ammunition works. This of course excludes tank with a very low ammunition count, but also stock tanks, so don't judge other people on the first sight. Does this sound familiar to you? Well, I was really shocked to find out that a lot of my friends had no idea which ammunition is the best one, and they ranted and cursed at tanks and their guns because in their experience they just couldn't kill stuff but were always one-shotted in return. They were really surprised to find out that their tanks could become real killer machines by using different and, on the first look, inferior ammunition. I am playing Warthunder Ground Forces since the closed beta, and now I own all researchable tanks and played them all a lot, with the exception of some of the high tier tanks. This should not sound arrogant, but I simply know what I am talking about, at least I think so. This video is about the current state of patch 1.57 and includes knowledge from my experience, from videos, documentaries, books, and also infos I got from my friends who helped me out, and also the information provided by Warthunder itself via hit and kill cam and stat cards in the hangar. This video is simply a compromise between an in-depth, very detailed guide and the effort of making a short, informative, good video you can really learn stuff from. There is much more to talk about, and I will cover it in special tank reviews where it is of better use. After this video, I hope you know the basics, the game mechanics, and the way of learning for yourself, even without a guide, tank review, or other help. Basically, all the information you need is within Warthunder. You just have to look. One of the most important points my entire argumentation is based on, and also you can learn basically everything for yourself, is the hit and kill cam. You can see it every time you hit or kill someone in the top right corner of your screen. If you don't see it, you probably have turned it off, but I highly recommend you to search it in the options and put it on. The hit and kill cam is one of the very best introductions into Warthunder ever, hands down. When it finally got introduced, I could see what was going on and learn from not just my mistakes, but also from my enemies, what tactics they used, which ammunition they used, and yeah, which wrong turns I did that got me killed. Don't forget to check out the video description, as there are links to pictures and videos that will illustrate what I am talking about. Some pictures and videos are much better than 1,000 words to describe what I am talking about, which is kind of funny that I link you to other videos that... never mind. So let's begin with the hit and kill cam. What does it show and what can you possibly learn from it? Well, first of all, I talk about just the kill cam you see when you hit somebody, because the kill cam you get when you get killed, you should avoid, because getting killed is rather unhealthy and stuff. So, when you hit someone, it shows you where you hit and if you penetrated at all. If not, it shows if you had a bounce. The shell just changed direction on the surface of the armor. You even couldn't have had the necessary penetration power, but the shell just bounced off the angled armor. If you didn't have the necessary penetration, but also didn't have a bounce, you just simply see a red dot that does nothing. You simply got stuck in the armor with your shell. If you penetrate with your shell, the hit and kill cam shows you a lot more going on, especially on the inside of the enemy tank. You see much stuff flying around, and what does there actually happen? Well, that depends on the type of ammunition, but in general, the penetrating process causes shrapnels, which come from the damaged armor plate itself. They can do a lot of damage by itself, just by flying around. Hashtag hash. See what I did there? Hashtag hash? Hashtag hash? Hash? No? No? Ah, forget. Never mind. People these days just don't have humor. Finally, we come to the ammunition. And as I just mentioned, there are basically two types of shells. The first one, and easiest to understand, is the kinetic based shell, followed by the chemical energy based shell. Let's begin with the kinetic shell types. And there we have 4 different shell types I will talk about. The first one, a simple armor piercing shell, AP. It just penetrates the armor and punches through, causing shrapnels from the armor plate itself as well. Everything in its way will get killed or damaged, and it keeps flying through the entirety of the enemy tank until it hits the other side. It can cause fires and ammo rack explosions when hitting fuel tanks, engines or ammunition. Overall, a good shell, because it is mostly not affected by objects on its way like bushes, trees, houses made out of wood or other objects. The best shot I know so far for simple armor piercing shots is the stock shell from the M103 with a penetration value of around 280 millimeters. It is good against narrow tanks from the front, where it can damage or kill a lot on its way through, but it doesn't like sloped armor. Spaced armor is practically not a big problem unless all the armor plates together have a steel value higher than the value the shell can penetrate according to its stat card. The second shell type is APCR. It stands for Armor Piercing Composite Rigid and works practically like an AP shell, with the difference of having usually significant higher penetrating values against flat armor, but much worse effect against sloped armor due to the nature of the shell design. I will put some links into the video description that give you an idea what I am talking about. My personal opinion about APCR is mixed. Leaving historical access to it aside, this type of shell is not good in my opinion, at least in my experience. There are not many tanks in Warthunder where APCR is a shell recommended to use often. There are very few examples like M4, A3, E2 and also the 76mm variant, because all other ammunition choices and the APCR is rather huge, and also its main opponents where you need higher penetrating often show flat armor, so there you can actually use the APCR. The third shell type is APDS, which stands for Armor Piercing Discarding Civets. From the first look it seems to be quite similar to APCR in terms of penetrating and damage. But in practice APDS is superior to APCR in nearly everything, if not every respect. It works very good even against sloped armor and bounces just under the smallest angles of attack. Even the shrapnel effect seems to be higher than AP or APCR shells. I suppose it was down to a buff a few patches ago, which really was necessary to keep the British mid to high tier tanks, which really heavily rely on APDS, competitive. Again, you will find some links in the video description below. Firstly added on the Walker Bulldog, it is in fact my second favorite shell in the game now. Finally, we come to the last kinetic based shell type, which is my favorite shell type for tanks in the game and was it from the very beginning. APHE, Armor Piercing High Explosive, as I call it. It is practically an armor piercing solid shot, but with a high explosive filling. In game they are mostly known as APC or APCBC shells, especially in the German tech tree they have a different nomenclature like Panzergranate Rot or Panzergranate 39. This is a bit confusing if you go for the APC APCBC designation, because the C and CBC just describes the caps on top of the shell itself. Yes, the caps are important for better penetrating, less negative normalization, and also a more precise, more energy retaining flight through air. But no real word so far why this shell type is my most favorite shell type in the game. Well, that is because I think this shell type is the most reliable shell and at the same time the most devastating shell. Mostly APHE shells have a bit less penetrating values compared to simple AP shells, but have the same characteristica against sloped armor. Compared to APCR, they are better, but worse compared to APDS. The real magic happens after entering the enemy tank, when their fuse goes off and the high explosive filling sends shrapnels in all directions, killing crew members, setting fuel tanks and engines on fire, and also damages the gun breech, the turret ring, and often also lets ammo racks explode. This type of shell is responsible for the devastating killing power of Soviet and German tanks, which have access to this shell type from the first battle onwards. Often a lot of American tanks have to research this kind of shell, but then it's for American tanks in particular a trade-off between penetrating and damaging effect, because American APHE shells often lack the penetrating power that Soviet and German tanks have. British tanks do not have access to those awesome shell types at all, and therefore are frustrating to play for players who are used to this kind of ammunition from other nations. At this point, I think it's a good idea to stop the video and talk about the chemical energy related shells and also the selection of shell types in general in the next video. So, thanks for watching. Let me know if you learned anything from it, and see you next time.